Hello everyone, welcome to a new video on the channel. Today we are going through my reading so far for April and we're going to get straight into it. I've read 9 books so far and I've read a total of 3,584 pages, which is higher than last month, and I can definitely feel that. I have been focusing a lot on trying to get through my arcs that I have that are due by the end of the month or during this month, and that is why my most read format is ebook this month. I have an average about 3.9, which is roughly on par with how I sit most months. In the middle of the month I tend to have a decent average, and then it either goes to custard or it continues on that way. I'm really thankful that I haven't had to DNF any books yet, and I'm doing really well with my challenges. I've only got one more to complete for the TBR vending machine, so that is fantastic, and that is all we need to talk about in the stats so far. Let's get straight into the books. I'm going to talk about all 9 books and what I've thought about them. The first book I completed in April was Your Blood, My Bones by Kelly Andrew. This is set in the same world as The Whispering Dark, which is this author's debut novel. And one of the biggest issues I had with that book was it really needed a lot of editing, and also, as much as I enjoyed the potential vibes of the story, the execution was really lacking. And I'm very glad to say that with this book, that is a big change. The story is more cohesive, the characters feel fully fleshed out, and the story feels like it's actually living up to its potential, which was really great. I was a little bit concerned when I applied for this as an arc that I might be let down again, but I'm really glad that this author has really gone the extra step with this book and been able to sort of evolve with this sequel. I wouldn't really call it a sequel. It is in the same world, but it is very much so its own story, and I really enjoyed the characters in this one a great deal more than the first book. I will say that if you're not in the mood for an American Gothic tale, this probably isn't the story for you, because it is very much so in the theme with an American Gothic tale, and I really liked the spooky, creepy vibes of this book. I loved the characters and how obsessive and twisted everything was for them. It was tragic at times, it was really overwhelming. The world is so richly detailed, and I think that this is a fantastic return from the first book for Kelly Andrew. It's a really great sophomore book to release, and I'm looking forward to seeing more from her if she keeps up with this style, because I really enjoyed myself and I gave it 4 stars. The next book I completed was A Charming Hope by Ashley Ivicott. This is a novella, part of a huge anthology type series. A whole bunch of authors have come together to support a cause, and I think it's all done with like fairy tale retellings, and this one in particular follows Princess and the Frog. I am very lucky that I got an ARC copy of this tale, but I have also pre-ordered the actual ebook so I can support the cause. You can find out more about that in the link that I will have just below for the author's Instagram. But I really enjoyed this one. I really love the Princess and the Frog retellings and the storyline, and I'm just a really big fan of this fairy tale. So I was very excited when I found out that Ashley was going to be doing this particular fairy tale, and it follows Devon, who is a prince who has vowed to never love again, and he has had some really hard times recently, and the nail on the coffin for him, I guess, was that his brother is now betrothed to the woman that he thought he loved, and his childhood friend Annalise, or Princess Annalise, who comes from a different kingdom, has come to visit because it's his father's birthday, and they have big celebration every year. And unfortunately she can't find Devon, and no one can, because he's been turned into a frog, and obviously it's the very typical retelling of that story, and I really enjoyed this. I knew that I would come into this expecting a really hope-filled story, and really like charming characters, and just a really nice wholesome feel, and everything that I expected was met. So that is why I gave this 5 stars, and I really hope that Ashley continues with her fairy tale retellings because I'm really enjoying them. When I tell you that I was super shocked that I gave Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey 5 stars, it's not because the book isn't good, it totally deserves that rating, but I personally didn't think I was going to give another Tessa Bailey book 5 stars ever again. I am one of those readers that really enjoyed Bellinger Sisters series by this author, but hasn't really enjoyed any other books by her since, and I was coming into this just expecting it was going to be an okay time. Little did I know that I was going to feel the same giddiness that I felt when I read that series that I really do enjoy by this author. This follows Wells and Josephine, and Josephine's been a big fan of Wells for a very long time, and he is down on his luck at the moment with his golf career, and together they work on fixing things for both of them. Josephine's golf shop has been flooded in a natural disaster, and to repay for repairs and everything like that, she has become Wells's caddy, but together they become a whole lot more. I really enjoyed the romance, and I really enjoyed the fact that the romance didn't overwhelm the overall story. Everyone gets their good character arc. It's just a wholesome time, really funny at times, and I really enjoyed the chemistry and the banter between the two main characters. So I'll definitely be reading on in this series. I'm looking forward to the next one. I'm not huge on sports romances, but this one really hit the spot, so I'm so glad I gave it 5 stars. Next book that I completed was The Hemlock Queen by Hannah Whitten. This is book 2 in the Nightshade Crown series. I absolutely adored this book. When I say that I needed severe, this is, I can't even word it. You really need to have some comfort food around when you're reading this book. You're going to get stressed out. I was really stressed from the majority of this book because I was really worried about one of the characters and what was going to happen to him, and obviously I figured it out not too early on, but I had my suspicions, and just watching it all play out, I was just really stressed. The angst that's in this world, and just, this is a perfect sequel. Like, the second book syndrome is in play, but also it's just got a lot going on that keeps you engaged. There's a lot of setup for what's to come, but Law and Bastian are just formidable characters in this, as well as we've still got the love triangle going on. Unfortunately, that is why I dropped half a star point off of this being a 5-star read. I did end up giving it 4.5 stars. I was a little bit tired of the love triangle. I was in book 1 though, so I wasn't really needing it, but the world that is happening and the twisting of the old and the new and everything is just so intricately weaved. This is a book about a world, or a kingdom I should say, that really relies on the belief of the gods, and it has a very heavy church, and imagine Versailles back in the 17th century, that kind of level of churchy atmosphere and religious belief. Everything has sort of gone chaotic. There is magic involved in this world, and the magic system is really interesting. I don't want to give away too much of this, because if you haven't read The Foxglove King, then a lot of the things that happen in The Hemlock Queen won't make sense, but I do really recommend picking up this series. I was on the fence about the first book. I did give it 3.5 stars. The last portion of that book, though, is a complete 5-star read, but I did struggle for the first 40% of the book. With this one, I barely struggled at all. There were some dry points, but again, that's just down to that being the second book and it's setting things up. But I just really enjoyed the evolving characters and just the new plot lines and everything that was developing in this book. Very well done. Highly recommend. I'm going to be honest with you. The star rating that I ended up giving this book, which is on the screen saying it's 4 stars, is actually not really ideal. I would probably give this book maybe 3 stars or 2.5 stars, but listen, I really enjoyed 2 characters in this world, and I was living for them so much that I ended up bumping this up to 4 stars, because I was just I don't even know. Uh, I do want to point out though that my actual rating would be lower than 4 stars, and I probably should change it, but I was just having a good time with those characters. This follows a lot of people. There is a heist involved. There are vampires. There is a tea shop that also moonlights as like a vampire den at night, to a blood, like a place to get blood for vampires at night. There is a story that's going on in the background regarding like colonization and the effects of that. There's a lot going on in this book, and I have to say that as much as I wanted to love this so much, there were so many plot holes in this book that if this was a ship, it would have sunk immediately. Unfortunately, the vibes were great. There were a couple of characters that were fantastic, but the overall deliverance of this book is not great. I feel really hesitant to say that I wouldn't recommend, because I did have a good enough time. Obviously, I gave it 4 stars in the end for those characters and for some ridiculous reason. But yeah, do come into it with lower expectations than I did, because I read this with my book club that I belong to, and we all had a really terrible time with the amount of convenience writing and plot holes. That being said, there's some really interesting characters in this world. I really love Matteo. He's like, I hope that's how you say his name. He's my absolute favourite. And I also loved Jin's point of view. You get 3 point of views most of the time throughout this book, and Jin and Flick are fantastic characters. They have a lot going on. Unfortunately, the main character, Arthur, I had no interest in whatsoever. But yeah, enjoy this for the vibes, not for the critical writing, because yeah, it's not there. I picked up Powerless by Lauren Roberts mostly because of the hype around this book. I expected a great deal of things, and unfortunately, this did not deliver. This is a book about 2 characters. You get their point of views. One is Kai. He is the second prince in a kingdom where the magic system is very much, there's an elite system for certain characters, sorry, not characters, people, and then there's obviously people who don't have magic or an ability, and they're called the ordinary, and they are being claimed as being diseased ridden and need to be exterminated. And Kai is being raised by his father, the king, as the enforcer. I think that's what his role's called. And essentially he has to go around killing people who are deemed ordinary, and this is a lot for him to be doing, but you know, it's what his future entails. And then you have the female character who is called Payton, and she is an ordinary, but she is hiding out, claiming she has psychic power and is just really good at observing people. And in the end, they get twisted up in a trial together, and obviously feelings are involved and betrayals and everything. Essentially, this is a book that has 15, at least 15 different mainstream fantasy romance novels all packed into it. It's got a Hunger Games trial. I've not read that, but that's what everyone said to me. And I guess that would make sense. It's a very survival based trial. There is absolutely no sense to this trial, but it's there. You have the enemies to lovers-esque type role that a lot of popular fantasy novels have at the moment. You have characters that honestly sound like at least 10 other characters I've read before. So she's very stabby and vicious, and he's just a real charming flirt with a tragic backstory, that kind of thing. I was really let down by this. I did get involved in it more as I continue to read it. It is easy enough to read, and strangely enough, I will be reading book 2 because I just want to know what happens. But I was expecting a great deal more of the romance aspect, and I was also expecting I don't know, better characters, I guess. I just really struggled to get invested in them, and that is why I gave this 3 stars. I read this with my friend who also gave it 3 stars, and we both almost DNF'd it several times. So yeah, don't believe the hype that everyone's saying. You either love this book or you won't. So the next book that I completed was A Letter to the Luminous Deep by Sylvie Catherall. This was marketed as a historical fantasy that if you loved Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, then you would love this type of world. It's very similar. And of course, if you're new here, that book series, Emily Wilde, has become basically my entire personality. It is my favorite series at the moment, has been for over a year. And of course, there's not many books like it, so I jumped at the chance to read this. The synopsis sounded really curious and really interesting. It follows a character who only goes by E, and she has correspondence with a scholar. I've even forgotten his name. Oh God, Henry. And yeah, they're supposed to have correspondence, and then they end up going on some sort of mission together, I guess, and then they disappear. And then it's got a second storyline where their brother and sister respectively are trying to uncover what happened. Unfortunately for this story, it did not deliver whatsoever. I would have DNF'd it if I didn't feel the moral obligation, since I got it as an e-arc. The story is told entirely in letter correspondence. You have two timelines-ish, maybe there's three. One is the letters between E and Henry and all the other people around them at that time period, and then there's the letters that are sent between the brother and sister in the present time, trying to record and recover and try and find what actually went on and understand a bit more of their siblings who had gone missing. And I really did not enjoy this. All the letters sounded like one person was writing the entire way through. Every person used an excessive amount of postscripts at the end of each letter with really important information that should have been in the main portion of the letter. There was a lot of exclamation marks, and that is one of my pet peeves. And they were always told within bracketed information with an exclamation mark on the end. It read like everyone was super excited all the time, and also everyone just seemed to have the same voice. And I won't continue on belittling this book. It just wasn't for me. I didn't get into it. I didn't understand the humor, so I gave it 2 stars. So the next book that I completed was the third book of the Curvy Girls Club, Curvy Girls Can't Date Cowboys by Kelsey Stouting. I'm reading this with a friend who has really enjoyed it and has finished at the core friend group level. There are 12 books in the series, but I think we're only reading to book 5 or 6. I am catching up. I agreed to reading all of the core friend group with her, and this one, yeah, it was just okay. The whole world is never going to be something that I'm going to fully invest myself in and really enjoy. It is what you get kind of aspect, what you see is what you get. It's alright. A lot of it in this book, my main problems were with her parents, with Ginger's parents, and how toxic they were. There were a few red flags in this that really grinded my gears, but overall it's a 3-star read. And the last read I have to talk about today is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This is a standalone historical fantasy set in the Spanish Golden Age / Spanish Inquisition. I hope I said that right. My English then was not very good. And I read this as an audiobook on Spotify, mostly because I got the new 15 hours free, but also because I knew that this had just come out, and I am a stickler for avoiding books that have an overhype type deal to them when they very first come out, if I can avoid it. I just don't know why, but I get really resistant to it, and I've never read anything by this author before. And I was really intrigued with how the author would weave the Spanish Inquisition into this tale, and it was done so well. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars. It's my favorite read so far this month, and I don't know if anything can top it. It was just so good. It follows Louisa. She is a scullion, and she has little magic that she uses every day to try and help her in her lower position in society. And she goes from just having these little magics to using her magic in a great way to sort of better off not only herself but the people around her. So her the lady of the house that she lives in takes her under her wing and starts to use her for better social status, and then they get the attention of a disgraced what is he, a secretary or something to the king, and he takes her under his wing and lavishes her and finds like fabrics and just really brings her up from her maid status to something greater, because of her magic in a holy contestant type trial. And obviously it doesn't go to plan and things get very dangerous and deadly very quickly. I really liked the character development for Louisa, especially the fact that you get to see her naivety with people who have power. Like, she does have some sort of what is the word I'm looking for? Resilience, and sort of like, she is aware. She's not like, she's very intelligent, and so she can tell when people aren't doing great things, and like when to lie and when not to lie. But also because she's starting to get things like nice dresses and she's getting nice food and she's not having to sleep on the floor anymore, she is sort of naive in some ways around some characters, and then when that backfires, obviously she hardens against that, and I really liked that. I really enjoyed her evolving character throughout, and how she starts off with such a little world and then she becomes something great. And I love that even in the face of death and losing everything, she will only go out on her terms, which was so good. And I absolutely love the main male character in this story. His name's, I'm going to pronounce the wrong way, it's Santiago, I think, because I did listen to this. I didn't read it. I should really check on like a Google pronunciation, but just take me for it. He's absolutely formidable. I loved him. So he is the villain type. I think he's very morally grey, and he helps Louisa with her powers. He is tethered to the man with power in this story, the disgraced secretary dude, and he has been trying to break free from his immortal service to this family for many years, and has been given the opportunity to do so if he helps Louisa. So obviously they get entangled with each other, and it's just, I don't want to give too much more away. This book is so good and I highly recommend you pick it up immediately. Don't be like me who normally avoids the hype, because this one is actually worth it. And that is all 9 books that I've read so far in April. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Have you read any of these books? Did you have very similar or very different opinions about them? I'd love to know in the comments below. Are you adding any of these books to your TBR? Also would love to know that. And until we next meet, I hope you have fun reading or journaling, and I'll be back with a new video sometime very soon. Bye everyone!